Hello friends, this is Dr. Kaustubh. I'm here to discuss the important points from today's newspaper, The Hindu, May 26. Before moving forward to the news, I would like to advise that you subscribe this channel, you rate us, review us, and like this video at the end once you are done watching it. So we move to the first news today. First news is about India-Bangladesh relationship. The Prime Minister of Bangladesh is visiting India, and the sticky points between the two countries are the Tista dispute. It is a river that originates in the state of Sikkim around Kanchenjunga. It flows into Bangladesh, and being a downstream country, Bangladesh wants India to have a proper framework regarding the sharing of waters. And this deal is important because it would apply, or it would be a template not only for the Tista sharing, but apart from that, there are nearly 53 other rivers that are shared between the two countries. So this is important. This is stuck because of the opposition or non-compliance of West Bengal as a state with the central deal. Next, this article speaks about the shared cultural heritage between the two countries, which is very significant. It may be the history, the geography, Rabindranath Tagore, the language, and many more things. After that, we move to the land boundary arrangement. Now, this has been one of the most significant steps taken by this government. It was the land boundary arrangement was hanging since 1972. It was Indira and Sheikh Mujib which had signed that agreement, but it had not been ratified by our parliament. So this was one of the most landmark agreements that was implemented very recently. Next, the shared struggles of the past, common problems like climate change, because Sundarbans, 60% of it is in Bangladesh and 40% in India. So this area is completely, not only Sundarbans but the entire delta is very vulnerable to the changes being brought in by the anthropogenic climate change and global warming. The importance of mutual cooperation is being highlighted. Areas are mentioned here, and then the cooperation in areas like connectivity, space, and power. So this is what is important in this news. Next, we move to the second news. It is about the rising fuel prices. The center, now looking for a long-term solution, wants to bring petroleum products under GST. You can see that alcohol and petroleum products are not included under GST. There is an opposition for its inclusion because the states view alcohol and petroleum products as their main sources of revenue. So, now the proposal is, if the states agree, then the center will also want to bring it under GST. The word here important is consensus. Now this is something that we can use in cooperative and the federalism that the government is speaking about. So a sense of consensus has to be evolved so that petroleum products can be brought under GST and the consumers can be given relief. So GST is considered the most successful indirect tax reform since independence, though the direct tax code DTC 2010 is still not being implemented. That is a direct tax reform. The next move, the next article here is about NGT. This is National Green Tribunal. You need to prepare this. Second, this news is not very significant. You can just go through it. I have highlighted the keywords. It is NGT. The court, Supreme Court, also has not interfered in the orders given by NGT. This is significant. And NGT is there to protect the environment. Now, the case is mentioned here. It can be used in science and tech, that lead content, the content of lead in water pipes, and it's present in paints also. So this is considered to be toxic. Now, in your syllabus, you also have NGOs and their role in the development process. So NGOs act in various fields. It may be poverty, it may be financial inclusion, it can be environment. So here, one NGO is mentioned here that you can quote as an example. The next news that we move on is about the fourth pillar of democracy. Now here the news may not be important. Don't go into the personalities or the political parties mentioned here. What is required is the fourth pillar is being threatened. Recently there was also a survey throughout the world. It was a global survey which highlighted India as a very dangerous place for journalists. Now this is something that we need to take care about. It is a cause of concern, and we need to preserve the independence, autonomy, and the safety, security of journalists which are operating in the country. Next, it's about crocodile. This is an environment related news which can be important for paper 3. Now this is a species Magar crocodile. This is found in Chambal, which is its natural habitat. It is IUCN vulnerable, and then it is also protected under Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. So these are all questions that may originate. The Chambal River has large breeding population. It is mentioned here. So again, an environmental NGO has been mentioned, Wildlife SOS, which you can use in your answers. The next news is about West Asia. Now, this article is not just about Iran, though the picture shows here Khamenei, right? This article is completely about the geopolitics of West Asia. So that is why I highlighted the keywords. The writer is Rakesh Sood. You have to be very vigilant that whenever he writes article, you have to read that article nicely, because he writes defense related and geopolitical articles and with a very deep insight into it. So the keywords are Arab Spring. There have been questions on this in UPSC. Golan Heights, it is an area disputed between Syria and Israel. Then civil war in Yemen. Here, it's a playground for the rivalry between Iran and Saudi Arabia, which are the regional powers vying with each other or competing for geopolitics. The Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, that was the deal that was signed by the statesman Barack Obama, that is P5 plus Germany had signed this agreement with Iran to contain the development of nuclear weapons in Iran, and that was considered to be one of the most successful diplomatic achievements of Barack Obama. So, and not only for Obama but the entire world. So because this deal was for peace and diplomacy. Now the blocking statute, this is important because this is a statute in it was in US to respond to US legislation imposing extraterritorial sanctions on companies engaging with Cuba. So the point is US unilaterally sanctions trade with countries that it targets, like Cuba, now it is Iran, it may be North Korea, but then other countries which have nothing to do with the crisis many a times suffer, the companies suffer because of US sanctions. Now this is something that has been passed in European Union to take care of this US unilateral sanctions. Now this is US demands. This paragraph shows demands made by America from Iran. Now these are unilateral demands and these are extreme. So some you can support, some you can oppose. For example, uranium enrichment, even India doesn't support Iran getting nuclear. Then unfettered access for the inspectors, that is fine. End to missile proliferation, that is also okay. Ending support to Hezbollah. Now Hezbollah is a militant organization that is operating in Lebanon, and it is believed that the Shias, that is Iran, supports Hezbollah. Then the Hamas, which is Israel-based terrorist group or which rules Gaza Strip. Then it is Houthi rebels in Yemen. So all these are supported by Iran as a regional power. Shia militants in Iraq and the Taliban. So this is what the US is demanding. This JPCOA is important agreement. Here the clauses are given. The Stuxnet attack, this is important, that US had used this virus to completely cripple the Iran nuclear program in 2009. So this is important. Highly enriched uranium. In science and tech, you need to prepare this. Barack Obama as a statesman, you can use him in ethics paper also. 1979 Iranian Revolution, part of history, you are supposed to be aware of that. Saudi Arabia and Israel, these are the major adversaries of Iran in the West Asia. They perceive the JPCOA as a move towards ending Iran's isolation. You can very well understand that Saudi Arabia and Israel want Iran to be isolated in the region. The playgrounds are given here: Yemen, Syria, Hezbollah, Golan Heights. I've repeated, already spoken about them. And this is the opinion of the writer, that it is difficult to verify Iran's compliance. But then there is no reason, when Iran says that it is complying with JPCOA, there is no reason for America to scuttle the deal like this, right? So this is a nice article. Just move to the next one. It is about RERA. You are aware of this. This is real estate legislation, that is Real Estate Regulation and Development Act 2016. Now this is very significant because the property market is considered to be the prime source of black money in India. So this is an this is a law which regulates all the deals, and then this is very much closely related to the NPAs of the banking sector. So this is important because the main purpose is make that real estate sector operates in efficient and transparent manner and protects the interest of consumers. So this is very crucial. But the progress of the act has been mentioned in this article, very informative. Only 20 states have applied it. There is dilution of the provisions in many of the states like Uttar Pradesh. The speedy dispute redress mechanism has not been set up in most of the states. Only 6 states have set up the online portal which was required. Northeastern states are opposing RERA on the grounds of constitution because land there is as per constitution owned by the communities. Maharashtra is a role model. So MahaRERA, that Maharashtra Real Estate Regulatory Authority, or MahaRERA, and the appellate tribunal that Maharashtra set up, it's a template that other states can follow in India. The requirement, now RERA's notable requirements are given here. This escrow fund. So I mean, generally the developers take money from the customers and do not hand over the flats in time. They use that money for other projects. Then the original projects get delayed. The consumers are affected. So all this is taken care of by these provisions of the Act. Now, because the provisions are stricter, there are many developers who are facing insolvency proceedings under the new insolvency and bankruptcy code. So this is very important. This you have to prepare nicely. Heightened interest in real estate investment trust. Now this is something which is important from economics point of view. Real estate investment trusts. So do search on this and prepare your notes. Central government is keen to curb black money. Now after this informative article, we move to the next one. It is about the North Korean crisis. You know that North Korea wants to go nuclear, and the whole world, not only US, wants North Korea to control its or stop nuclear enrichment. So denuclearization and peace in Korean Peninsula is very significant. But you know that what has happened is, because of the nature of Donald Trump, America has become totally unpredictable. One day he says, I want to talk to Kim. Second day he withdraws. Next day he again says that the deal is still open. So this has infused a lot of uncertainty into the global geopolitics. So the details are given here. You can just go through this. You can very well see that on one hand, US was trying to speak to North Korea, and second, on the other hand, it just went forward with the joint military exercise with South Korea. Now this gives conflicting signals to North. Also some statements made by the administrators of US, like the Libyan model. You know what happened in Libya. Muammar Gaddafi signed agreement with the US, gave up all the nuclear power it had, and then he was killed by NATO-backed forces right. So this is something that Korea is worried about. So we just move forward. The next news is about medical malpractice. We'll not go into the specifics here, but what is crucial is, what we need in our country is strict regulation of private hospitals. We know that in India, the public health care is in shambles. Most of the patients get treatment in private hospitals, and because of increasing corporatization of this hospitals healthcare, what has happened is the cost of healthcare is becoming unaffordable for people. So here, what we need to be concerned with, the keywords are the National Pharmaceutical Pricing Authority. This we are interested in. Second, the Alma-Ata Declaration, very important. You can use this in essays. Health for All by 2000. Next, it is the Apollo chains information is given. Next, Jan Swasthya Abhiyan, and network of NGOs. Now this NGO, civil society, the role in healthcare, that has been mentioned here. Then the Clinical Establishment Registration and Regulation Act 2010. This is also a very important act you need to be prepared with. But health being a state subject, the states have to ratify the law and implement it. Most of the states haven't made provisions to implement the law. Then we are also interested in the National Health Protection Scheme that the government has launched and is very serious about. Kolkata's Amri Hospital, this Supreme Court case is very crucial, because it penalized the doctor 11 crore for negligence. So apart from that, in Indian law, the case of medical malpractice can be proved only by a committee of peers, that is other doctors, but then doctors do not go against doctors generally. Since 2012, only 167 doctors. So record of MCI, you can see it's pathetic. So because of this, medical malpractice has become a very serious issue. Be prepared. The next news that is important here is the news regarding Pakistan. Extension of ceasefire in Jammu Kashmir. So I've been speaking about this every day. The key points are, this is a high time that infiltration should stop. Pakistan should stop cross-border fire, not only on LOC but also international border. Third, we need to open an intra-Kashmir dialogue where all the players that operate in Kashmir need to come face to face and speak, discuss, debate. And last but not the least, India needs to open up communication channel with Pakistan, because that is the only way the crisis can be solved. If US can speak to North Korea, if US can speak to Iran, India can speak to and should speak to Pakistan. Next, it's about Home Ministry's recent decision to open a new division for women's security. What it will deal with, this paragraph mentions it. All things are important here. Nirbhaya Fund, the CCTNS, the NCRB, right? And then what it seeks to do. All this is mentioned in this paragraph. This is crucial news. Next, it is again about GST, but then we have already discussed this issue. What I want to highlight here is the keyword GST Council. You need to be prepared about it. You are aware that center charges excise duty on petroleum, whereas states impose value added tax, that is VAT. And alcohol, petrol, I have already spoken about this. The key point is it's about federalism. So the center and the state have to come together and speak and to find solutions to this problem of burning fuel. Next, this news is about again India Bangladesh. Bangladesh is India's biggest trade partner among the SAARC countries. India and Bangladesh have a very positive engagement since history. So 100% repatriate. This is something that this news is about, how Bangladesh is trying to incentivize the Indian businesses to invest in its own country. So Bangladesh was it's in improving its economics, and India has to learn a lot of, especially in the social sector, from Bangladesh. The next, it's a factual news. India's first smart and green highway, the Eastern Peripheral Expressway. The next news is about international organization called Shanghai Cooperation Organization. The keyword is Shenzhen. Shenzhen is China's biggest SEZ that is located on the Pearl River Delta, that is Shi River Delta. This is in very close distance to Hong Kong, Macau, and Canton, which is the capital of the southern province of Guangdong in China. So this is something that you are required to read. Then India and Pakistan became full members in last June of SCO at a summit in Astana, Kazakhstan. So next news here is again, it's about Vedanta. Now Vedanta is in news because of what happened in Thoothukudi in Tamil Nadu, the Sterlite copper industries and the pollution associated with it. Now Vedanta this is not the first time that Vedanta is in news for wrong reasons in India. See, Vedanta is headquartered in UK, and it is headed by an Indian, Anil Agrawal. The point is, even Amnesty International has raised issue. This is an NGO again. I've highlighted issues regarding the conduct of Vedanta and abuse of human rights in developing countries. Illegal mining it has been involved in. Vedanta before this was also in news in India, in Odisha, because of the Nyamgiri controversy, the Dungriya cones. The local tribals were opposing the plan by Vedanta there to mine aluminium. So after this we move forward. Ireland to decide on abortion law. You are aware that Ireland is one of the most conservative religious countries which is Catholic in nature. Now this country has a amendment in its constitution, so it is given 8th amendment to the Irish constitution was installed following 83 referendum which approved outlawing abortion. So abortion is not allowed. What it results in is mass migration of women, pregnant women from Ireland to UK, where abortion is legal. So they go there for abortion. Now there is a demand for referendum, and a referendum would be conducted to allow whether to allow or not abortion in the country. Now referendum is a kind of direct democracy. So this term is also important from polity point of view. Referendum comes 3 years after Ireland voted to legalize same-sex marriages in the country. Now women travelling each year to Britain, law was tweaked in 2013 to allow termination if mother's life is at risk. And then these are the recent proposals. When we study such a news, it is also important to study what laws govern abortion in our country. So it is Medical Termination of Pregnancy 1971 Act. You are supposed to read this act, and with that you also try to study the PCPNDT Act, which is in news regarding the deteriorating child sex ratio in the country. PCPNDT Act, right? The next news that is important is migration in Britain. You are very well aware that most of the Indians and South Asians especially moved to Britain as highly skilled labor. Now a lot of Indian diaspora is present. Of all the Indian companies that are operating in European Union, more than 80% are headquartered in London. Now the point is, UK is getting even more and more unfriendly to migrants, and the diaspora there is facing a lot of problems. So this paragraph highlights the plight of the diaspora there. So this is something that India and UK need to, in bilateral, you can study this, that India and UK are negotiating on these points, that how the UK can be more friendly to Indian diaspora. Next, summit may still happen. So this is Trump classic. Now this news is not important. We have already discussed it. I have highlighted this part, that UN. So in such crisis, I believe that it is not America who should be able to take or take shots unilaterally. The point is, United Nations as a mediator should be involved to evolve dialogue, consensus, so that peace prevails in the world. Next, it is about Putin. Now he has an interest to stabilize this deal and ends Iran's isolation. So whenever we speak about West Asia and we speak about Iran's interest in it, read it through Russia also. So Russia is a firm backer of Iran in West Asia. So whatever Iran we have discussed in the past in Rakesh Sood sir's article very recently, the editorial, the major country that backs Iran is Russia. Next, it is about the insolvency and bankruptcy code. Now this article highlights that the key word here is Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India. Now this is important. The article highlights that this law is not being completely used up to the hilt in our country. We need to do better than this. There are certain provisions in the law which are questioned, because it is said that the 70%, 75% of creditors' approval is required for plans to be passed. The plans for insolvency and bankruptcy. What happens is, because of a high level of threshold, many creditors do not agree with the plan, and so unintended consequences, a lot of good plans were getting rejected because small creditors would hold up the whole process. So it is argued that the threshold should be brought to 51%. Next, we have discussed already this yesterday also. Now this is about the recent directive by the center, which says that the public sector utilities should be, or PSUs should get out of turn allocation of coal. See, this is summer season, the demand for power goes high throughout the country, and because of this peak, the thermal power plants face a lot of shortage in terms of coal available. Now there are many agreements which are, see, power, only the thermal power plants do not need coal. Many industries, which are even private industries, need coal for their energy. So the point is, when center says that the coal should be diverted to power plants, the industries are going to oppose, because their production and their power becomes uncertain. So this is what is highlighted. It also gives a wrong message when we say that we are going to, as government, we are going to provide a level playing field to public and private sector. So this is highlighted here. One key word here is plant load factor. This is important because if the plant load factor increases, the efficiency of power plants increases and the pollution decreases. So this is the important points that are mentioned here in this article. After this, we move to the next news, which is related to the forex reserves. These are foreign exchange reserves. The numbers and stats are given here. Recently, it has been seen that the foreign exchange reserves of India are falling. The reason is the equation, the exchange rate being adverse for India. The rupee is which is worst performing Asian currency at this time. So it is weaker because of rising crude oil prices, and you know that we import 80% of it. That is the reason why rupee is facing a problem with respect to dollars. Next, it's an article about new telescope that is in South Africa. It is world's first, because till now telescopes used to observe or see the sky. Now this is a telescope, or this is a project where eyes and ears have been combined. So the world's first optical telescope linked to a radio telescope. So optical telescope will see and radio telescope will hear the universe. So square kilometer array, this is our factual. All the important points are marked. Wherever you feel that you need to take down notes, just pause the video and take the notes. These are all factual material, will not go in detail, just go through it. The next article is about Facebook and Twitter to regulate political ads. You have seen that in the context of election of Donald Trump in America, there has been a lot of controversy over the role of Facebook, the Cambridge Analytica scandal. In the light of this, it has prompted Facebook and Twitter to bring out a regulation, so that we know in India also there is a big problem called paid news. So here also Facebook says that paid for label would be applied to political news. Even Twitter tries to do the same. The next is about this is the last article that we are discussing. The article is about obesity, and see, this news is not important, but rather why I have highlighted this here is to tell you clearly that there are certain news that you need to let go and not get influenced. See, they say that obese hospital patients are more likely to survive an infectious disease than people of normal weight. Now you don't have to take it the way that obesity is good, right? You just have to neglect it. This is something that you need to be very critical of and be very aware of. Now this is all from my side for today's lecture. Today's The Hindu. I request you to subscribe to this page, this channel, rate us, review us, give your feedback, and like this video. Thank you.